Call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Welcome to the May 2022 regular school board meeting for the Richland Mean Gloucester Community School Corporation. Please let the record reflect that all board members are present except for Angie Jacobs, who is ill this evening, so we wish her well. And our next item of business is our Mustang moment. So Dr. Sanders, would you like to introduce them?
Yes, I'd like to introduce our director of the Edgewood Early Childhood Center, Matt Wooden. He's also helping us out with the administrative duties at EPS right now.
Well, thank you. It's good to be here, and I'll just take a few minutes to encapsulate what's been going on in these last several weeks at EECC. It's been a very busy last month and a half, 2 months, and we're excited to share some of the things that have been going on. First of all, I want to go back to something that happened quite some time ago, back on March 3rd. As you're well aware, RBB was very well represented at the Bloomington Chamber of Commerce Educator of the Year Awards this year. But I did just want to pause and put a spotlight on Amber Harrison from EECC. To the best of our knowledge, Amber is the first early childhood educator ever to win this award. And that's special, of course, because it's somebody here from RBB. It's special, of course, because it's a recognition of what's happening with early childhood in our community in a way that we haven't seen in the past. A phrase that I use from time to time is that early childhood is finally kind of getting a spot at the table. If you grew up in a family like mine, you had the kids' table and you had the grown-ups table. And early childhood, interestingly enough, I think is finally kind of getting a spot at the grown-ups table. And it was great to have Amber honored for that award and receive the benefits from that award, one of which is that she'll go out and she'll attend a Solution Tree Conference in San Francisco this fall. Of course, here's the big news, right? We've been in our new building now since March 22nd. It was a thrilling day. That's not a picture from March 22nd there. March 22nd was a dreary, rainy day, and so I chose a different picture to represent our first day up there. But it's been wonderful to see so many visitors from our community coming in, and this new building is going to be the centerpiece for us as we move toward NACE accreditation this coming school year, past quality level 4 this coming school year. This building is going to allow us to do that. How is it going to do that? Well, in a lot of ways, it's just the physical space that we have now provided that's dedicated to preschool use and designed with preschoolers in mind. We'll have places for the centers, we have them now as you go into our classrooms, to cover the content areas that are necessary for national accreditation. We have the large gross motor space that's necessary to do the physical movement activities that are necessary for national accreditation and past quality level 4. I'll mention a little bit more about that here in just a minute. I do want to talk about our parent park and play days too on the week of April 11th to 15th. This was such a joy. We had a wonderful turnout of parents who took advantage of our preschool park and play days. They were given the opportunity to come, park their cars, walk into the building with their preschooler. Can you imagine? It's been so long since they've had the opportunity to do that. They got to come in and they played with their children in the classroom for a time, and then they took a tour of our new facility and heard the vision for some of the spaces that are there, for the outdoor play spaces that we'll be adding, but a couple of our indoor spaces that are coming as well. If you've been in that new facility, you know that we've got a nice space down at the bottom of the stairwell in the Early Childhood Center, which is going to turn into a resource library. And that resource library is not going to be solely for children's use. We will have books and resources in that space that children will be able to check out and use. But we see that as a resource library also for families, for early childhood families to come in, to get resources to take home and use with their children, to get resources to read about what they're doing with their children who are at those developmental stages. But beyond that, we see that as a resource library for other centers in our area. Part of being a Pass to Quality Level 4 preschool means that you take on a willing role as a mentor program for other programs in your area. And as you well know, our waiting list is quite extensive at EECC. It will be some time, if ever, before we're able to serve every preschool family in our community. And there are always going to be some families, of course, who are going to choose to send their preschool student to a different center in our area. And so it's to everyone's benefit that we create a resource library where other centers can come and get resources to improve their own practice, to learn more about what it means to be a quality early childhood facility in our area, because those kids are going to be our kids as well. Finally, of course, they got to hear the vision for our community gathering space, and we see that as a space, of course, not just for our children to gather, but for us to gather parents for educational seminars about early childhood, for us to host seminars for others in our community to come and learn more about how to do that practice well. And then the one that everybody's excited about, of course, is that here in June, we'll see ground break on an extensive designated outdoor preschool play space and shelter. That's going to be a wonderful addition to our collection of true jewels in our outdoor community. Our garden space that we already have, our hiking trails, our shared courtyard space. We're really going to have a premier outdoor area for these preschoolers to enjoy. And as you can see here with my friend here, it's a space that they're already enjoying as it is right now. I'd encourage you to come over and see it. If you haven't had a chance to come over and walk around the facility when children are present, come on over. I'd love for you to see how that new space is thriving, and it's because you, like others in our community, have given preschool that place at the table. Thank you.
People have questions. Any questions?
No, but I would just like to brag on Matt a little bit. I know I do that. I do that often because every time he does a presentation like this, I'm just impressed all over again. And we have a lot of great people at RBB, and it's really, I think the community in our area is really starting to take notice, and that just heartfelt, Matt. You did such a great job on that presentation. I just wanted to share that.
Mr. Wooden, I do have a few questions for you. First, can you explain a little bit more about level 4? What that entails and how many levels are there?
Sure. Well, 4th is it. There are 4 levels to Indiana's past equality system. And really, once you get to level 3, you've done the lion's share of the work. Level 3 means that you have a curriculum in place that meets Indiana's Early Learning Foundation, and that your staff meets the education criteria that a high-quality preschool has. Once you get to level 4 mostly consists of being accredited by a national body. In our case, that's NAEYC, the National Association for the Education of Young Children. And it's a pretty rigorous process that asks centers and specifically the educators at those centers to be really intentional about the documentation that they're doing. What is it that you're doing, for example, that demonstrates that children are making meaningful connections to the arts? What are you doing that shows that you're helping children make meaningful connections to literature? What are you doing that shows that you're helping children make meaningful connections to each other in community? And so we'll have both a program portfolio to create that will explain the vision and mission of the preschool, but a lot of this is falling on our staff to demonstrate what is it that you're doing. Show 2 pictures. Show in your lesson plans. It's pages and pages and pages of portfolio work that our teachers will do to really demonstrate that we're not just we don't just have a curriculum, but we have a curriculum that's really being implemented for the good of the preschool students in our school.
Are there many facilities in the area that have level 4?
Recently when the newspaper, when the Herald Times reported on level 3 and level 4, they didn't differentiate between who was a 3 and who was a 4, because the state doesn't do a lot of differentiation between a 3 or a 4. If you're a 3 or a 4, you're considered a high quality facility. But there are some in the community, yeah, and they're certainly beacons of great early childhood centers, yeah.
You mentioned the waiting list. My understanding from the last report you had that our preschool filled up in 20 minutes
Yeah.
from the time it opened.
Yeah.
So our own experience has shown that even though we have this nice new facility, we still have a significant need
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
preschool space in the area.
We do, yeah, and I received an email today from a family who was hoping to enroll their preschooler for this coming school year. And as is frequently the case when I hear from a family this time of year, they really think they're on the ball. They think they're ahead of the game in getting signed up because it's not August yet, and they're raring to go. And I have to be the bearer of bad news that not only are we full with the waiting list, but it'll be difficult to find quality preschool care anywhere in this area with this far out from the start of the school year. So yeah, that waiting list continues to grow, and our vision for early childhood should grow right along with it.
About how large is the waiting list now?
The last time that I checked, I think this was probably sometime last week. I think we were a hair over 100, 105, 110, probably somewhere in there.
So another 100, 105, 110
Yeah.
students are in need
Yeah.
in this area.
Yeah.
And I bet there's those who would like to be here that don't even bother putting their name on the waiting
I
list.
think you're exactly right. Yeah.
Okay. Just pretty positive there's still a strong need. So, and has there been any conceptual drawings of the outdoor play space done?
Yes, there have. I've seen. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
At some point, it'd be nice if you could send that to us and let us see what it's going to end up being. That would be really neat.
And there are some pictures of the play pieces specifically as well that I think are three-dimensional. But yeah.
Awesome. Okay, I have no further questions. Thank you so much for all you're doing there and for all the staff, Ms. Harrison and all those who are making a major impact on the lives of these kids. So we really thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, Mr. Wood, I think when we talked 2 or 3 years ago, we first met, when we got to that certain level too, that also helped with funding, reimbursement funding. So remind me how that worked again. And we can serve folks that they don't have the financial means, right?
That's correct.
They can get go ahead.
Yeah, so any preschool in Indiana that meets that level 3 standing on Path to Quality qualifies as an on-my-way pre-K provider. And this is a program that the state started a few years ago now to ensure that families who may not be able to or may not have the financial means to have preschool that year before kindergarten, that they would have access. Now, the state is really continuing to try to push that program and communicate that program, because like many programs, there's a lot of funding available, but it's still dependent on families utilizing it. And so we've been able to serve. I think this year we served 4 families through On My Way Pre-K. I think we have 5 registered for next year, and so it's a wonderful service to provide. But with more seats, we can bring more of those students in for sure.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wood. Okay. Now we move into our visitor comments portion. Do we have any visitors this evening?
Yeah, we had one visitor comment. It's Glenn Hopkins.
Right. Welcome, Mr. Hopkins.
Thank you, Mr. Kerr. President Kerr. I'll try to stand still with it. Wow, it's hard to follow Mr. Wooden. I always hated following Mr. Wooden over the years. He's quite the dynamic gentleman. RBB Board and Dr. Sanders. Before I begin, I want to congratulate the Steinsville Robotics team that compete in the World Championships once again this year. This team is made up of RBB students who have dedicated countless hours to problem solving, perseverance, cooperation, communication, and risk-taking. One team missed winning the World Championship by 2 points as a first-year competitors. Another team won their division, making it to the finals, and the final team came in third in their division. I'm very proud of these young student leaders. That's the end of that sentence. I'm going to skip the rest of that. My name is Glenn Hopkins. I am the parent and guardian of 2 students at Edgewood High School. I stand before you this evening to express my concern with the current language in the EHS handbook related to prearranged absences and end-of-course assessments or final exams. The current language reads, prearranged absences will not be granted during final exams. I believe it would be in the best interest of our students for this policy to be revised. Over the course of the school year, I've made contact with a handful of schools in Monroe County and across the state to inquire about the policy that they have in place. Every school that I've talked to, they have a policy that allows for students to schedule a prearranged absence with the approval of the building principal. There are 4 essential questions in a professional learning community. They are, what do we want all students to know and be able to do? How we know if they learn it? How will we respond when some students do not learn? And how we extend the learning for students who are already proficient. As a professional learning community, these 4 questions drive everything that a school does. RBB sent a cohort of educators and board members to the mill last summer to refocus their PLC efforts. It is not part of the beliefs or practices of PLCs to penalize students who take the responsibility for their learning by working with the principal and the teachers to ensure their knowledge has the opportunity to be measured. I understand there could be a fear for students or families taking advantage of this policy to get a head start on vacation. Policies, as we know, are not changed without careful consideration. This is why I hope that Edgewood High School and RBB schools will take time to revise the policy to reflect what is in the best interest of student learning. I trust the EHS and RBB will invest in writing a new policy that sets a formal process including timelines, roles, and responsibilities for the students, teachers, administration, and families as appropriate. I believe that if this is done correctly, RBB can right a wrong and continue to build on the first line in your mission statement, we are a family that cares about our students, their families, and the community. It is my understanding that school handbooks are sent to the board for approval in June or July each year. I look forward to the upcoming board member meetings to learn what the action has been taken. In closing out with a little positive hamburger here, congratulations to the seniors that will graduate in 2 weeks. Congratulations to the teachers that have worked these last 2.5 years during an ongoing pandemic. And a special congratulations to the students that have persevered while maintaining self-control in a caring, respectful manner. 2 sentences. Lastly, congratulations to the administrators that have led our children, staff, and families in our schools during this period of time. I hope everyone can have a restful summer with family and friends. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. Hey, next item is our consent agenda, which includes approval of minutes. We had an April 18th regular school board meeting. We had our April 18th work session, and also there was an executive session on April 25th. So we have the approval of minutes from all 3 of those. We have the treasurer's report for April of 2022. And Mr. Darnold, could you give us the claim?
Thank you, Mr. President. Corporation financials, gross wages for 4/1 of 2022 is $621,516.75. Gross wages mini payroll for April the 2nd, 2022, $2,093.69. Gross wages April the 15th, 2022, $693,475.04. Gross wages for April 29th, 2022, $677,912.61. Vouchers and prepays for April 1st through April 30th, 2022 is $1,101,739.27. For claims regular vouchers on May the 16th, $367,305. Claims Forest Hills vouchers on May the 17th, 2022 is $14,113.27 for a grand total of $3,478,155.63. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Darnold. Consideration of donations. There are 3. I believe these are all from the primary school using donors' shoes. You have Mrs. PA's class, $174, Mrs. Drew's, $300, Mrs. Truax's class for $463.25. So quite the range, and the board packet, it listed out what all those funds were for, and it was just amazing what the contributions that come through Donors Choose and others are doing for our students. We have personnel, resignations, retirements, non-renewals, leaves, and terminations, 1 through 11, and personnel with appointments and transfers, 1 through 24. There is also consideration to approve the Edgewood High School girls basketball team for an overnight trip to Vincennes University, and to approve the Edgewood High School's cheerleaders an overnight trip to Anderson University. So that is the entire consent agenda. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the consent agenda.
I second.
Any questions or comments? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any?
Yes, I'd like to be able to recognize, we have several new teachers who are on the agenda tonight who you just approved. And, a few minutes ago, I was bragging about Mr. Wooden and the quality of staff we have here in Edgewood schools, and we're just getting better. And tonight, we have 4 new hires who will be teaching at Edgewood Primary School, and I would like to introduce them. And I told them they each had to give a 30-minute speech, so.
Okay. Microphone's right up here.
2 minutes.
No, I'd like for them to stand up when I call their names. Corey Carnegie and Jenna Stevens and Kayla Parker and Hannah Steinmetz. And we just worked it out so well that as I read off their names, they sat in that order.
Yeah.
That's how good we are. And I believe Hannah's going to be teaching second grade. Is that right? So there'll be 2 Hannahs at second grade. They'll have to work out that challenge. But believe me, there were. I got the opportunity to interview for. At the teacher interview day at IU, and I can just tell you there are a lot of high-quality candidates out there, and we got the best. So thanks for coming tonight.
Welcome.
Thank you. Congrats.
Great. Now we have the Assistant Superintendent's report, Mr. Irwin.
That we're on.
That works.
All right, we should be good now.
Yeah.
Starting with the education fund, month of April revenue was pretty true. We did get some catch-up funds from SOX for Forest Hills. Expenses came in a little lower than what was projected, and honestly, on a month-by-month basis, that's what we want to see. I updated some state tuition support just to reflect a little bit closer as we continue to eye in on what we think our ADM is going to be for next year and how that matches up with the funding. So I updated that a little bit with the fiscal year 23 legislative budget. And I still stayed a little conservative with that just because, again, you're rolling off a lot of variables and projections there. But all in all, again, we look a little better than last month, and hopefully that's the way that paints that picture throughout the course of the year. Debt service fund, there was no revenue into this fund in April. We did have a small trustee fee that we paid, which is normal. All of that is to be expected there. I will be bringing a request for an additional appropriation next month in debt service. That's just to account for the difference in the actual 21 GO bond payments that we have to make. When I did the budget last year, I had to go on estimates of what we thought the payments would be. And so when you put that budget out, they have to give you what you advertise for. We got the levy for what we needed, but they gave us the budget of appropriation for what we advertised for, so we just have to come back. We just have to come back and do the additional appropriation. So again, that doesn't really change anything. That's the same cash flows that you've seen throughout the course of the year. It doesn't change anything. Remember, appropriation is just authority to spend through the state, so you're just requesting that additional authority to spend. So operations, again, projections have remained steady, still showing slight increases. over what our year-end balance was last year. It's a little bit lower than what it was last month, but again, Mr. Moss, you'd asked a question about fuel expenses and other things like that. I had to adjust some of the things that I had projected just to account for some differences of what we thought was coming down the pipe there. But it's all in all, it still looks positive, and so we're standing in good shape. We'll pay for the buses when they arrive. We ordered those buses earlier in the year. They won't come in until June and November of this year. We don't pay for them until arrival. So I adjusted some of those claims numbers that you see on a month-by-month basis just to reflect that. Our claims numbers here earlier in the year weren't as high just because those buses didn't arrive when we thought they would. As with anything, it's coming in later than what you expect it to come in. So I had to move those down the line when we think those buses will come in. But all in all, we sit in good position to tackle some summer upkeep projects around the corporation, and everything's in good shape. So with that, I'll take any questions that you have.
Any questions?
I just had a couple. Mr. Irvin, have we been kind of watching them? I know we may ask for another bond issue at some point. I know the rates are creeping back up. We're kind of just waiting to see, I guess, whenever we're ready to do it.
So we have a meeting scheduled with Stiefel, which is our bond underwriter and advisor that we use. We'll meet with them this week to just kind of talk about what the current market looks like, what we think what we might need to do this year as far as bonding goes, and how that might affect our tax rate management of making sure that we stay neutral with our tax rate that we've set. So we had that meeting this week to talk about those items.
Okay, and as far as what you mentioned, that we talked earlier about the tax, our goal is to be tax neutral, but part of it's going to be educating the public when they got their new assessments. Their home, I don't know if it's across the board in all Monroe County, but it went up 10 to 12% their assessed value,
Yep.
which is the tax rate staying neutral, but the increase is going to be from the
Yeah,
assessed
so
value.
your assessed value goes up even if
Right.
the rate stays the same. Obviously, that's a higher amount. Again, you still have the caps that are on homes and businesses and farmland, so you have the 1% cap on residential. But we're below the cap in most
Right.
cases. In some places they are. It just depends on what township they're in. But again, if the rate stays neutral and our rate went down just a hair from where it was the previous year, if your AV goes through the roof, the bill's going to go up.
Correct,
Yeah.
okay. All right.
Thank you. Now we need to have a public hearing on an amendment to the superintendent's contract. This is a public hearing where the public and any discussion that wants to be had can be done on the amendment. And so I will officially open the public hearing on the amendment of the superintendent's contract. The amendment has basically two portions to it. Otherwise, everything is staying basically the same. One is that the contract will be extended for an additional year. So it's a 2-year contract, and so with one of those years behind us, adding on that second year again. And also there was an increase in the compensation to $140,000 is the new compensation for that per year for that 2-year contract. So at this point, if there are any members of the public who would like to address the amendments to the superintendent's contract, we invite you to come forward and do so. Okay, seeing no one move. Is there any discussion amongst the board needed? It's a pretty straightforward amendment.
It starts June 1st or July 1st?
July 1st.
July 1st, okay.
And it would go through the end of June of 2024, right?
Yeah.
Correct.
Yes, it is, so this month is the public hearing, and then next month would be the approval or not, the action of the board would come next month on this. So anything further? Okay. Hearing none, then the public hearing on the superintendent's contract is closed. Thank you. We'll have a report on the Edgewood Junior High School STEM certification. Dr. Sanders.
Yes, a lot of good news here tonight. We've known this for a little while, but we weren't allowed to make it public, but now we can. And that Edgewood Junior High School was recently named a STEM certified school. And so I'd like to congratulate Mr. Siglin and Mrs. Scott, wherever she's at.
She's right there.
Oh, there you are. And just all those who went into making it possible. It is a challenging process that takes quite a bit of time to complete. It's a lot of hard work, but the benefits for the students are great. And so I asked Mrs. Scott to come here tonight, and she's already schools coach at the junior high, and she's going to share some more information.
I'm gonna say something real quick. I'm gonna jump in just real quick because she's gonna be really humble about this process, and I just want to throw out there that I don't know, it was back in January, or we had to submit an initial score report or initial, I don't know what you call it, just an initial application, I guess, for STEM certification, and we got it back. You have to hit like 10 indicators. You have to have a level 3 on these 10 indicators to even be considered for a site visit. Well, on those indicators, we ended up with, I think, 7 out of 10 we hit the level 3 that we needed, so there's 3 we had to work on. But if you look at the initial score that we got, there's like, I don't know, you're not meeting any standards all the way up to innovating, and even though we didn't hit all 10 of those indicators that we had to hit, our score report was already put us in the innovating category. So the work that Megan and the STEM team did was really above and beyond. And, you know, as we went through the process, when they showed up, it was kind of like, yeah, we're going to do this. And it was really, Megan did an awesome job getting us ready and putting it together. So.
So yes, just to give you a little bit more information about what we did over the past couple of years, it has been several years in the making for us. So they started this process in 2015 with the state, and then you may recall that our elementaries went through STEM certification a few years ago as well. And we took an extra year with COVID, which was totally fine. We used it, and we had put into place a lot of the things that we've been working on for many, many years here. So all the way dating back to our work with the RDC and our STEM work with that in the beginning of the STEM coaches and the maker spaces at the elementary, and then moving on to this and ROI and all of our work with Ready Schools, and then even now into workforce development. So all of this is connected to our STEM certification process. And I think that really spoke to that when we had our visit. They could see that this was not just something that we started this year and that we were trying to pull together in a year. This had been having deep roots in our school and in our district with things like problem-based learning and inquiry-based learning and the workforce development, all of the things that we do with our graduate profile, all of that. So as Jonathan alluded to, I pulled up our final score, and we scored 70 out of 71 points on our final assessment, and they were very complimentary, and this really is a testament to the amazing teachers that we work with every day. This is not something you can pull together and show in a day. So it really was there, and we were totally off schedule too when we got in there, and we were kind of and we told them we were showing them real school. So this was, they didn't exactly see what we'd planned, because that's how it always works, but we did score a very substantial score across our 4 disciplines of instruction, curriculum, culture, and partnerships. So again, speaking to how we're connected with our community, how we're really trying to know what our community needs, we're in connection with them, using the voices of our parents and our community and our teachers and our students to inform our work. So just a very multifaceted, rigorous process, but my husband asked me, he's like, do you get any like money for this? Do you get like a prize? And no, you don't, but you get this recognition, and we are very, I feel that we are very, I'm grateful that we get the chance that the state sees that this is important work and needs to be done, and that we do get recognition for doing this work that we are doing anyways, because we know it is good for our students, but to have that recognition and join the other STEM certified schools. I think there were 15 total schools that were certified this year, and I want to say 10 of them were elementaries. So I also think that that speaks to with being at the secondary level and just kind of what a next level challenge that is to have the integration among subject areas and all of that. So again, a testament to our administration for their belief in this process and to our school board for their belief in this is important for our students and to all of our teachers for all of the work that they do every day. Any questions?
First,
Good, thank you.
Yeah.
What does STEM look like for an average student on an average day? Or, what kind of experiences do they get that, so that people might see why this is so important?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our school, we really embrace that STEM is not, a subject that you go to and teach, and this is kind of a special, and you go do STEM. It is really a way of teaching and learning that we try to embrace throughout all of our subject areas, and that's how our lab space is set up at our schools, how our teaching models and our coaching models are set up with helping our teachers integrate STEM-based practices into their curriculum, no matter what domain that they teach in. So we work as coaches, we work with our teachers to make lessons that help them tie in real-world connections, that help them get hands-on materials and the ability to make and create, voice and choice in what they are learning, and that they're seeing the relevance and authenticity of what they're doing in class. They see how that connects to the outside world. So on a day-to-day basis, it can look a lot of different ways, which is really exciting. We have students right now who are creating carnival games to have at our STEAM night that we'll be having next week that are related to concepts of probability and creating those, they're testing and doing data collection to see how theirs matches with what their expectations are. We have students who have done research. This was actually a social studies class that did research into water access around our world and use that to inform water filtration devices that would be appropriate for different areas around the world that they were learning about culturally. And then we have, all the way to, we have students who make games around theme in their literacy classes, and we have students who are making 3D printed versions of cells and of tangrams to help with our library to have more manipulatives for students to do. So lots of different domains that it can go into, but really our goal every time is to try and have that real world experience and understanding, the hands-on, the voice and choice, and the connections that they're making with the skills that they're practicing that they'll need for their work wherever they end up post-graduation.
Very exciting, very exciting. Any other questions?
I would point out that Mr. Siglin was right. She gave a lot of credit to other people, but she is dynamite and has deserves a lot of the credit herself.
I appreciate
And that's the beauty of what they're doing at the junior high is getting a lot of teachers involved. So every time I've gone up to observe what's going on in our design labs, it's not only Megan there, but Megan and other classroom teachers who are coming down to the design lab with their students to work on whatever project that they have. And I was very proud to be, when we had the visit from the state, I was very proud to be there. Mr. Siglin did an awesome job talking about his role and what he's trying to do at the junior high. And then we had classroom teachers who presented, and Megan. It really is a team effort.
Yeah.
And so congratulations to the junior high.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, we have a consideration to approve a memorandum of agreement with the Monroe County Health Department. Dr. Sanders.
Sure. So the Monroe County Health Department received $440,000 from the Indiana Department of Health in terms of grant money. The purpose of the grant funds is to help pay costs associated with COVID or other communicable illnesses. So what a school corporation had to do as far as participation was to submit a letter of intent, which we did that, and how much money we would receive depending on how many schools participated. So very proud to say that RBB will be receiving $38,709.10 from these grant funds. Our next step is what we're doing now, and that's completing a survey explaining how we plan to use those funds. The other part that we need to take care of tonight is that a school corporation has to submit a memorandum of agreement, and so that's what I'm asking the board to approve tonight.
Have a motion.
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
Any questions?
Just a couple of quick questions, Dr. Sanders. Can you hear me down there?
Yes.
This is also, our receiving part of this money was our compliance, our school corporation's compliance with the Monroe County Health Department, correct?
Yes,
And
we have.
not every school actually received this in the county because of whether
Right.
they were compliant or not.
Right, from
Okay.
day one, we've been, we've worked really hard to be aligned with what our experts have said about response to COVID. We've used the Monroe County Health Department and the Indiana Department of Health and the CDC to be our true north.
Okay.
And so that was part of the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Do I understand that we have to appoint a liaison,
Yes.
and have we done that?
Yes, and
Okay.
that would be, I self-appointed myself to do that.
Good move. Okay.
Okay. Anything further? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have consideration to approve a resolution authorizing the submission of a 1003 flexibility waiver. Dr. Sanders.
Yes, so under House Enrolled Act 1003, the Indiana Department of Education gives schools the opportunity to waive certain state statutes. There are certain statutes you're allowed to waive, and those that are you're not allowed to even touch. And so we have to submit a waiver application before the June 5th deadline. The purpose of the waiver is to improve student performance, promote innovative learning, and enhance the mission of our school corporation. And so I think we can make a very good argument for all three of those points. As you may know, the state representatives decided to limit e-learning days. That you're allowed up to 3 asynchronous e-learning days, which means that the activities that day can be self-paced, which teacher provides students with a list of activities or requirements to do that day, and they can work on their own pace. To count any other e-learning days, according to, against the 180 required school days, the e-learning days have to be live streamed. They have to be synchronous. And so I would like to take these 3 asynchronous e-learning days and save them for inclement weather days. Days that where you don't necessarily have time to put together a day of live streaming. But we rely on these e-learning days for some other important activities in terms of professional development, professional learning communities, and parent-teacher conferences. And so we would like to apply for this waiver, and we're looking at 2 state statutes, Indiana Code 20-30-2-2, which requires the instructional day for grades 1 to 6 to consist of at least 5 hours of instructional time, and for grades 7 to 12, it has to be 6 hours. So one of our pieces of evidence that we're going to put in our application is that we far exceed the number of instructional minutes required from the state, if you look at it, for the entire school year. And so we're going to ask that we waive that rule. For those 4, we're going to ask the state to give us permission to dismiss school 4 times next school year. So on those 4 days, we would not necessarily meet that requirement of 5 instructional hours for elementary and 6 instructional hours for secondary. The other code is Indiana Code -20-30-2-3, which says that a school corporation has to conduct at least 180 instructional days. We're going to propose to track those instructional days by minutes, because if you track it by minutes, we far exceed the requirements. So as I said, we're looking at dismissing school early 2 times each semester to work on professional development. So we'll be working under our professional learning communities to look at best practice for instruction and curriculum development, analyzing student assessment, looking at making sure we're meeting the needs of our the students in terms of mental health, and also to allow time for the teachers to conduct parent-teacher conferences. So if the state, we hope the state approves our waiver, and if they do, then that's when we'll send out the detailed information to our parents about exactly what days we're looking to have these early release days, and also what times we would be releasing school. Ferguson Law has created and approved the resolution that we're asking you to approve tonight. We must include this resolution in our application. So any questions on any of that?
I move to approve the resolution for the flexibility waiver.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Moved and second. Any questions for Dr. Lee?
Dr. Shannon, this is, assume if the state approves this, you're talking like 2 hours in the afternoon for 4 different days?
Well, we're talking probably more about half. So the students would come to school almost 3 hours, and then they would be dismissed, and the remaining part of the contract day for the teachers would be professional development. So it's about 3 hours, depending on which level we're talking about.
And two per semester?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Similar to we used to have the professional development days, the early release days we were able to do, and then
I was just thinking about tracking it down to the nearest minute. I mean, you do
So-
whatever they say, but tracking it by the minute, I think that's a
So
little
we already have actually parent-teacher conferences on the calendar. We made that decision actually before they made this change with e-learning days. So I was concerned that some of the professional development activities we have planned for next year in our parent-teacher conferences would have to be canceled. But this waiver gives us a chance to implement these important activities next year.
We don't have to worry about substitute teachers for professional
Yeah,
learning time. That's
yeah,
a big
and-
headache too, I know.
Really, and if you think about it, for these early release days, the students are going to come to school, they're going to get, rather with e-learning days, which, everybody works hard to make sure that our e-learning days are as quality as it can be. But it's not like being directly in front of a teacher. So these 4 early release days will give the students time to be directly in front of their teachers for part of the day. And it will still allow enough time in the afternoon for quality professional development or an opportunity for parent-teacher conferences.
And I believe that counting the minutes is, when you count the minutes that our students are in class throughout a year, it far exceeds
Right.
what is required, and that's why we
Existing.
should be allowed to have the waiver, because we are giving them the face-to-face instructional time, even without that.
Okay.
Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have consideration to approve some more school buses. And for that, we'll turn to Mr. Irwin.
So I know, we just approved these not too long ago, didn't we? So we've had some conversations with our Director of Transportation, Audrey, and looking at next year's replacement and had a conversation. They said, you know, we want to get our buses for next year. We have to get them right now. And I said, what do you mean? She goes, if we order them now, we get them in 12 to 14 months. So if we want to get our replacement buses ready for next school year, in the next calendar year, we need to order them now to start to get them in production. One of the other things that we are coming up on is the last year of our contracted bus routes. We plan to bid a few less of those than what we did last time, bring a couple of them back in, which creates the need to order a few more buses. We typically replace 2 a year, and so what I'm asking for is for 5 buses. So there's a 48, a 66, and 3 78 passenger buses that you guys saw the bids on and the bid on the board packet. Those would be funded kind of how they typically are on the 2 replacements. They would come from operations. And then the 3 extras, those would come from the GO bond, the 21 GO bond that was approved last year, which is part of the uses that we had already planned for that 21 GO bond. So we order those now. We'll get them in time. Those 3 extra buses are important as we come up. If we order them now, that means it puts us into getting them that next summer, which is right before we're going to need them here. So it's important that we do this now and we get ahead of the curve. Again, we don't pay for these until they arrive, so it's not like we're going to spend budget 2022 budget money on them, but this allows us to get that PO out, get the order in, and then when they get here, we'll pay for those on arrival. So with that, I'm asking for your approval just so we get those in time for next year's bus replacement.
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions, comments?
And this is still part of our normal bus replacement plan.
Yep.
We're not doing this in the understanding that we think we may lose contract drivers. We're just doing it because this is part of our process that we've already talked about, correct?
Yeah, that's part of the process, and even in the bus replacement plan that we had posted for this year's budget, it showed the 2 additional, and for next year already, we have the 2 in there. That's part of that 5-year bus replacement cycle, which we'll update again during this year's budget for the 2023 budget. But if we don't do the order now, we won't get the buses in time.
Okay.
I think it's maybe important for some of the community to understand our history with buses. At one point in time, first got on the board, all our buses were contracted. They were contracted to our local families. A lot of our farmers and things would drive buses as well, and they would have 1, 2, 3, maybe 4 buses and that they would have. Over the years, a lot of our community members have stopped doing that. There just isn't that many anymore, and so that's when we started gradually pulling a few more of those contract things in so that they're run by the school instead of just, you know, contract driver. Not that the contract drivers aren't great, but it's just, you know, it was really important before when it was our local, you know, farmer or person down the street that owned these routes. But now that that's changed, the school system is better off to pull those in, and we can actually run them more efficiently that way. So,
Okay.
so that's kind of the history behind why it's been gradually.
Right. Through
Pulling
attrition,
them
through
back.
attrition, right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have consideration to approve capital assets agreements. Mr. Irwin. Oh, nope, I'm sorry. Consideration to approve purchase of bus lifts. I don't want to go
Getting
out
ready
of
to
order.
flip my notes there, like, oh. Bus lifts, yeah, so the bus lift is something that with the addition to the transportation with the 3 new bays, we had hired a mechanic earlier in this school year who's been fantastic, by the way. Can't say enough good things about him. Cody Jones, he's been great. We need to get bus lifts for the new transportation bays. So we're just getting 1 bus lift set, so it comes with 4 rolling individual lifts that lift synchronously, and then we have the 4 emergency jack stands that would go underneath it as well, but it just allows Cody the ability to get the bus up in the air, to work on them and roll through those a little bit quicker and more efficiently than what he's able to do right now. Obviously, getting to bring those buses inside of those bays to work on it will be fantastic. As of right now in the winter, there was a lot of times he was outside working on the buses, which again, I'm sure slows things down quite a bit. So this purchase, again, we bid that out. We did take the second lowest bid, but it was the most responsive bid. The low bidder was not responsive. We asked for information several times on cut sheets and different things that we needed to know in order to make sure that it was meeting those requirements, and they stopped responding. So we did go with the second lowest quote bid. And so with that, I'm asking for your approval. The approval for this is coming from the 2020 construction bond funds.
I move approval of the purchase of the bus lifts.
I'll second.
Any questions, comments?
On the, Mr. Wooden, on the new add-on of the bus barn, there's no walk down underneath the buses?
No.
It's okay, so this will be mobile, and they can go from bay to bay to bay to bay?
Yeah, so
Okay.
they can move it to any one of the bays that they want. And again, the ceiling height of the bays was made sure to be high enough that when the buses are in the air, they have the
Yep,
ceiling head
that was gonna be my next question,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
so you raise and goes to the roof. yeah.
Strategically planned,
I
yes,
just make
for
sure
sure.
that was all planned out, okay.
We don't want to do new roof work right where it's built now.
Okay, so we'll make sure you measure that.
The mobility is nice
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
then, you may get one bus and needs to get some parts in
Right.
that you need the lift for. We go ahead and set it down and move the lift to a different bay.
Right.
And move on to the next bus, so.
Yep.
it-
Okay.
Portability is beneficial.
All right.
Anything further? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have approval of the capital assets agreement. Mr. Owen.
Yeah, so we've used AdTech for our capital assets inventory the last couple of times in cycles. We have to do this once every 2 years. So this is for the approval of one more cycle, which will get us through another 2 years. Again, we have to do a capital asset inventory of all things that meet that $5,000 threshold, those physical items that we have. So whether you're talking about vehicles or different things that we have around the corporation, they come in and they asset tag those, provide us lengthy reports. Those are things that we have to have per state board of accounts. And then those are things that we have to put up on Gateway as well. So with this agreement, they come in, they take care of a lot of that. They furnish us with the electric copies, digital copy, in-hand copy, and they take care of those requirements for us. So with that, I'm asking for your approval of this agreement with AdTech.
I move approval of the agreement with AdTech for capital assessments.
I second.
Any questions, comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Consideration to approve the purchase of an upgrade to the ECA accounting software. Mr. Owen.
Yeah, so we're staying with the same company software. We're just upgrading to the next best thing, which actually brings it up to the level that we have with our corporation accounting software. The ECA software is at an older version, a web-based version, a Windows-based version, and so we're bringing it up to the version that we're using in our corporation accounting software, which will make things easier on a side-by-side as far as some of those dual controls and being able to help out when there's need. Again, just giving her an up-to-date system. It comes with on-site training so that Janine gets on-site training with the new system so that they can kind of walk her through some of the newer nuances of the system and make sure that she's up to speed with anything that she needs. So that's a part of the upgrade costs. And so we have to get on the list to get this done because there's a waiting list to get to the upgraded software that's matching on this. So we probably won't get to it for another few months, but with the approval, it gets us on the list so that they can get us ready to make that upgrade here in the near future. So with that, I'm asking for your approval.
I'd move approval.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
Yeah, when you say a few months, are we talking this summer or the fall?
No, probably won't be this summer. I would imagine it'll be closer to the fall. They might wait till closer to year end. We just kind of have to feel that process out and how quickly they're moving
Okay.
through things, but they said it definitely would be at least a couple of months.
Okay, thank you.
So now everything will transfer, if
Yep.
the data should come over and so
Yep,
forth?
they'll get everything transferred in. They'll do all the training with it. They'll make sure everything's, ready to go. And so, yeah, that's all a part of the process.
All right, thanks.
Any further? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Let's see, now we have consideration to approve, we had previously approved a new food service vehicle, but we have to update that. So, Mr. Irwin.
Yeah, so last month when we came for the approvals with that, we had something set in stone. We thought we had it. Come to find after the board meeting, they went ahead and sold the vehicle, so we didn't have the vehicle that you guys had approved. So we had to go searching for another Honda Odyssey. We were able to find one. Audrey was able to work through a local dealer to be able to find another Honda Odyssey. So you're approving the same vehicle. It's just an updated price from a different dealer. Same specifications as far as why we chose that vehicle, but we're just coming back and renewing what the actual price is. It was just it was a couple $1,000s difference when it was all said and done. But again, it's coming from the same funds. It's coming from the lunch fund account that Vicki was able to pay for that for all the needs that we talked about last month with food service. So with that, I'm asking for your approval of the updated price on this new food service van.
I'll move approval.
I second.
We do have this one.
Yep, it is in hand. It is in hand. It's got some tricky technology in it, but it's a nice van.
Any other questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Now we have consideration to approve an updated lifeguard rate, and this would be starting on May 17th.
Yeah, so pools obviously opening back up. It's been a couple of years since we've done anything with the lifeguard rate, and we're having trouble staffing for lifeguards right now because all the other pools are paying $3 to $4+ more an hour than what we're paying. So we're bringing that lifeguard rate kind of up to speed with where it currently is at so that we make sure that we have the people on duty to make sure that we're safely allowing people to use our pool and making sure that we have the people there to do that. So with that, I'm asking for your approval to upgrade the lifeguard rate from $10 to $14 an hour.
I make a motion to approve the increase in the hourly rate.
I'll second.
Any questions or comments?
Just that my son was a lifeguard for 3 years here, and he wasn't making quite $14 an hour. Of course, he's 40 now, so.
Brother? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Mr. Irwin. Now we have consideration to approve Neola policy revisions. This would be for volume 30, number 2, and for volume 31, number 1. Dr. Sanders.
Yes, sir. As you know, these revisions were presented to the board for first reading at our April school board meeting. You've had a chance to review those policies, and so we are recommending approval tonight.
I'd move approval, Mr. President.
Along with that, I would like to make one clarification to one of the policies. Policy 7510, which is the use of school facilities, I do propose to be in the recommendation or the motion that 2 minor changes be made. There is a list of facilities and priority list, and on H of that, it did not include a community organizational being for recreational purposes. And so you have before you the 2 where that one is actually checked, so that could be one. Quite a few recreational community organizations like RBVYS use our facilities, so I think it was important for them to be on there. And then on I, it is commercial or profit-making organizations or individuals offering services for profit. That said, with board approval, and I would propose that the motion strike the words "with board approval." The reason being is, like, for instance, on, we have Food Truck Fridays
Right.
sometimes, EPS and EIS. Well, that's a for-profit, so I don't think that is the kind of thing that would need to come to the school board for
No, I don't
approval.
either, no.
I think that's something that the superintendent can handle.
In the building, for instance,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I would request that your motion include those 2 minor changes.
So moved.
I'll second.
I just had a was this just put on our table tonight?
I'm sorry?
Was this just given us tonight, the
Yes.
proposed?
Yes.
Okay, on letter H, Dr. Sanders, couple, you marked out political and religious. What about polling?
What about what?
Polling?
When they're having an election, like that's a political,
Oh,
It's
that
mar-
was struck out under E. Do you want to explain the reasoning for that, or?
What were you gonna say, Dana?
In the past, we've been used as voting
Right.
places, and we have not done that for several years. I don't.
Well, I think the voting process is apolitical, isn't it? So I know you're voting for different elected officials, often for different parties, but it's supposed to be neutral process. So I would think that polling we would be having a neutral site.
so you're saying that this wouldn't apply to that?
Right.
Okay, what about like on the religious, I know at times, and this has been years ago, they had Vacation Bible School here for the little kids and used the parking lot. Is that something we're not going to allow now? Not that it's going to happen, but I didn't know if that was going to be looked at the same way as the voting sites.
Right.
I just confused me a little bit.
Yeah. I guess it would be up to us to determine exactly the purpose of the use of the facility. Sometimes they have rally around a flag
Right.
event, but that's not really a use of the facility. So I think it just kind of protects the school corporation from getting involved in something that could be an issue in the community.
Okay, because I know the Hilly 100 in the past have had a church service here also,
Right.
and I don't know if that was going to preclude that or not.
Actually, I had an Easter service in this room one time.
Right, that's kind of, I just didn't know, I know the intent, but I don't know if we wanted to think that one through a little bit more or not.
Well, we got a couple options. We could add back E, which is the voter registration and elections that was stricken. We could add that back in, so that if we decided we wanted to use
I
it
see.
for elections. I think one of the
Right.
reasons we stopped using it for elections, Monroe County schools are closed on
Yes.
election day, and we are not. And so we're mixing a lot of community people coming in and out of the building.
For safety.
Yeah.
With the students in the building.
Right.
So I think that may be one of the reasons why we haven't
That's
participated.
And
I
how
see.
disruptive is that?
I see what you're saying now. I thought you were referring to H, but
I was referring to
yeah,
H.
but E, we need to allow E because we do use the high school for a polling station.
But how disruptive is that to the days?
Well, it's disruptive.
Mr. Ackerman?
That's what I thought.
Okay.
That's one reason we stopped it, yeah.
The bus lot is an issue, and just, we've had issues with security. It's been difficult in the last few years.
When's the last time that they were used, Mr. Ackerman?
They were, so last year actually was the first year that they did not use the school, so.
So 2020.
This year's primary, but prior to that, they had been used. They just moved to the town hall.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe we should leave it on the list, but go through some considerations before we'd actually allow it to be used for that
I
purpose.
think, yeah,
Because all of these are dependent on the superintendent's approval.
Right.
So it's not saying that they will happen, it's just saying they would be allowed to happen.
Right.
Should the superintendent determine that it was.
Yeah, my concern would be the disruption of the school day. I mean, that's, we're,
Right.
Yeah.
And this is a prioritized list, but the ones that were lined out wouldn't be on the list as we voted on it, correct? We want to leave those on, a couple of these on the list, even though they're prioritized.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Kerr, but we can either correct this right now or table this particular policy and bring it back down the road.
Yes, we could do that. I do believe that there is the caveat on all of these that they have to be approved by you.
Right.
So that just because they're on the list doesn't mean they would happen.
Right.
And now that we start looking at it, I also worry about the other governmental agencies because
Right.
the Monroe County Health Department came in and used the shot clinics.
Well, it says here, corporation facilities shall be available for the below listed uses. When there are competing interests for such uses, approval will be given according to the following priorities.
Well, and the first one is uses directly related to the schools and the operations of the schools. So if it's determined, for instance, the polling site would be interfering with the schools, then the school use trumps that as well. So I'm at the suggestion of the other board members. Do you want to?
Can we pull this out, clean it up a little bit, and vote on everything else tonight?
Sure.
And then, okay, I'm not sure the right way to do that. I propose that we table this one,
7510.
7510, table that, clean it up, double check the wording of it, and make sure it's as we want it, and then vote on everything else this evening.
So that being moved, is there a second for that?
I would second that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the motion on the table is to remove policy 7510 from the list of Neola policies. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. So now what remains is the motion on the table to approve all the remaining policies still survive that motion, and that was seconded. So is there any further discussion on the remainder of the policies?
I think I got all my questions answered earlier about the remainder ones. I didn't notice that one, to be frank, as far as the facility use, but the rest of them, the ones that I had questions about got answered, so.
Okay. So then again, just to clarify, the motion before the board is approval of all of the Neola policies, volume 30, number 2, and volume 31, number 1, except for policy 7510. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. We'll work on that one for next month. Okay.
Good job.
Sorry for all the time that one took, but we'll do that. So now we're up to the superintendent's report. So Dr. Sanders.
Yes, so on May 27th, we'll be wrapping up what I believe was a very successful 2021-2022 school year. We have a lot to celebrate. One, I feel really good that we persevered through COVID this year, and we were able to stay in person the entire school year. That enabled our teachers to be able to identify and address learning gaps that came from the previous year when we had a number of different schedules. And so I believe that our principals would attest to this, that our students and our teachers worked really hard this year and have made great strides in addressing those learning gaps. We continue to grow in innovative learning opportunities. You heard Megan Scott and John Sieglin talk about what's going on at the junior high from K to 12. We have a lot of great innovative learning activities going on throughout all of our Edgewood schools. We are able to open up the Innovative Learning Center here at the high school. We have the media production labs, both at the junior high and high school. And so a lot of great learning going on. And when I think about these successes, you have to factor in that it was a challenging year in terms of COVID. But RBB, not only do I believe we had a great response to COVID, but I also believe that we were able to really accomplish a lot in terms of the educational and learning opportunities we provide our students. We, as Mr. Wooden mentioned, that we opened up our Edgewood Early Childhood Center facility, and it's just a great thing for our school community, and we hope to just continue to expand our preschool opportunities, as Mr. Wood mentioned, go in level 4, and obviously there's a need for even building a even larger early childhood center, that hopefully that will come to be in the years to come. So we've had a lot of great accomplishments from our students and teachers. Our winter percussion won the state championship this year, and that's something to celebrate. Our number of our teachers received the Educator of the Year award, so we're heading into the end of the school year on a very positive note. I shared with you here on my report all the awards programs that are coming up over the next week and a half, and I'm looking forward to joining as many of those as I can. This Wednesday night right here in the auditorium will be Senior Honors Night at 7 o'clock, and a lot of scholarship money and awards will be given out that night. That's always a great night for our students. And then, of course, our commencement on June 4th at 11 o'clock. And I also wanted to put a commercial out there. We've talked about Envision Ellisville for a long time now. They have a plan for our vision for the community. And so tomorrow night from 5 to 7 at the town hall, there will be a community celebration of food trucks, sweet treats, music, and other family fun activities. And right at 6 o'clock, they're going to do a presentation about that vision plan. I'd like to invite just the whole community to come out to that tomorrow night at Town Hall from 5 to 7 p.m. So, thank you.
Thank you. Now we have RBBEA comments, and Mr. Eels is here with us this evening.
Whole meeting. I'm very impressed. Very good. Hey, good to see everybody. Some I've noticed the last couple of months, we've got a lot of new faces coming in. We have a lot of turnover. Probably what I said last time, the only thing constant is change. I've been here long enough. I think I see a couple former students over there ready to take charge. So that's exciting. It really is. I think it also means they'll have to lean on our more experienced teachers to help them and guide them along the way. We have a lot of great people still around. And speaking of that, Megan Scott is one of those as well. I know I'm repeating some folks. I don't work with her a whole lot, but when I have, she's been nothing but professional. Really just a cheerleader, to be honest. She is an asset without a doubt for us. Also to echo Dr. Sanders' comments, being in person all year has been huge. I know we talked about it in our hallways at the high school. You know, it's been a challenging year, no doubt about it, but we've made it. 9 more days. But we are going to make it. I'm going to drag the seniors across the finish line. We joke that they're out of shape for being here 180 days, but it's been a huge improvement, and you know, we have learned about things they haven't picked up from the year before, but that's what we're here for, and it's fine. Really looking forward to a fresh start next year after getting through all this. Also, to folks, Dr. Sanders, appreciate you looking forward in terms of the flexible waiver, and hopefully we can take care of that as well, because those are important things. And with that, that's really about it. We're down to 9 days, and thank you for all your work.
Thank you, Mr. Yules. We have our board member comments, and we'll start with Mr. Tucker.
I just want to echo what Mr. Yules said. Thanks to everybody for getting through this full year. Congrats, as Mr. Hopkins mentioned, about the Steinsville aerobatic teams and all their success again this year. Hats off to Mr. Wooden on the level 4 and the Mr. Sigler with the STEM certification. I also want to point out, Dr. Sanders sent us an email and congratulate Mr. Irwin on the Region 7 Business Manager of the Year Award for IASBO, which is a great honor. We're very fortunate to have Mr. Irwin. He's continuing to learn and to keep our budget in order. Lastly, I'd like to promote, if you haven't signed up for summer school, if anybody's listening out there, summer school will be awesome. So we got a great summer school available. Hopefully kids can use that to catch up if necessary. And everybody be safe as we approach graduation.
Mr. Durham.
Thank you. I want to welcome Corey, Kayla, Jenna, and Hannah. I hope you're all as excited to be going in as I am excited for you. You've got a beautiful building to teach in. You've got a great staff there with Brenda and Matt. We're just so glad to have you on board with us. Just want to thank all of our administrators and what they've done through this last school year. I know it was tough, even though COVID was kind of on the downhill run. I want to make just one quick announcement here. We are planning the Ellisville Main Street and the Ellisville Parks Board is planning on having a memorial service again this year. We were out of it for a couple of years, but May the 30th, about 11 o'clock, we'll be having a memorial service at Memorial Park right behind the library. So just for information, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. DeMoss.
I just want to thank people who gave to Donors Choose for our donations. And wow, congratulations to Mr. Irwin for his award. Over the last few weeks, between the track team, golf team, tennis, baseball, softball, the prom, Bradford Woods, the music, I think one shout out I have to give, the Academic Super Bowl Fine Arts team actually finished fourth in the state. They qualified for the state and finished fourth. Congratulations to Coach Mr. Axiom. But what a wonderful time, and I also got a chance to sample the coffee shop here at the high school and had a delicious smoothie, and I still don't believe it was 23 calories. There was no way that was only 23 calories. It tasted way too good. And and good luck to the class of 22 as they hit the finish line here. So that's it.
Thank you. So much appreciate everyone coming tonight, and I appreciate our new teachers coming to be with us. A good takeaway from the night is Donors Choose. If you need things for your new classrooms, you might check out. I'm sure your colleagues would be happy to tell you how they made that work for them. So very glad to have you all here. I've always said the greatest part about being on the school board is commencement. I love sitting up there, and I love watching those students walk across that stage, and it's just a wonderful experience, and it's always fun to see their faces. Some are timid, some are excited. I mean, it's just that you can see the years of education rolled up into their faces, and it is. I mean, they're graduating high school, we say, but they're graduating all of RBB. I mean, from our Edgewood Early Childhood Center to EPS, EIS, EJHS, EHS. I mean, it takes all of you to get them to this point. So thank you so much on behalf of the graduates. And with that, you all have a wonderful evening, and this meeting's adjourned.